Welcome back to Data Driven Recruiting. My name is Sophia Beck, and I'm joined by my co-host Tigran Sloyan. Hi, Tigran.
Yeah. Hey, excited to be here. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, so I want to kind of build on top of what we discussed last week, which
Mhm.
was about how there are different layers of knowledge. Knowledge is not just like, monotone one thing, but there are different layers of knowledge. So today I want to talk a little bit more about how do we go about measuring those different layers of knowledge and
Mhm.
what are some of the considerations that we should keep in mind when you're measuring one layer versus the other.
Yeah. And to kind of specifically talk about software engineering, since our expertise is
Hmm.
around measuring software engineering knowledge, as a reminder, the three main layers when it comes to software development are the core, the language layer, and the framework layer, where the core is kind of the fundamental knowledge of computer programming and translating English into code. The language layer is the ability to understand the intricate details of the specific language and how it can be applied to solving real world problems.
Hmm.
And the framework layer being one level higher in abstraction to the language layer that helps you create applications using different types of frameworks for different languages and different use cases. Easiest way to think about it is in the core, for example, in JavaScript, can you write code in JavaScript? If I told you to merge two strings, could you merge those two strings together and give me a new string? And a language layer is if I'm asking you to handle asynchronous calls in JavaScript, can you handle them appropriately and send it back to me? And in the framework layer, if I want you to build a front end dynamic application using React, which is a JavaScript framework, can you do that or not? Now, when it comes to measuring those layers, it's really interesting that like because the core is the most sort of common and shared piece of knowledge, right?
Hmm. The fundamentals of computer science or
Right.
programming in general. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because like similar to, I don't know, like if you're playing any sort of a ball game, like you got to know how to run and be a decent runner. Because if you can't run, you can't do anything else that is like a higher level, right? But just like with most sports games and ball games, is like the more you go to the outer layer skills, it gets more
Mhm.
specialized, right? So
Right. Right.
like both in like American football and basketball, like can't run, probably can't play that sport really well. But when you go to higher level skills, in one, like you want to be able to dribble the ball and shoot it towards the hoop, and the other one, you probably want to take it and run and be able to outrun others and be really strong, right? So
Yeah.
similarly, when it comes to measuring software development skills, measuring core is easier and it's also easier to automate because
Mm.
ideally what you're looking for is you're looking for leverage in your ability to scale recruiting and your ability to measure ability.
Right.
And when you're measuring the core, it's significantly easier to automate that because it's a lot more, there's not too many variations there. Like the thing is that as you get to the outer layers, it gets
Hmm.
far more complex. There, for example, JavaScript alone has, I mean, it has four very popular frameworks, right? Like Vue, Angular, React. But then if you keep going down that list, like into the different types of libraries, different
Hmm.
types of open source projects that people build on top, there's just so many variations that it becomes harder and harder to measure automatically.
Right. And I think it's interesting the analogy you brought because I think that makes it much easier to kind of digest for those who are not as deeply embedded into the software world. And then I think that reminded me of also that part on the basketball when you are recruiting your college level basketball player, you go to the high schools and you measure things like how quickly someone can react, how fast you can run this
Mhm.
particular distance, how
Yeah.
high they can jump. It's not about how how with all the defenses you can do a dunk shoot. It's more
Right.
about, do you have the fundamentals as an athlete,
Right.
and then you become within your team specialized in a particular position and therefore particular skill. So that sounds like that's kind of a similar here as
Exactly.
well.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Like you don't really build a specialized skill until kind of later in your career.
Hmm.
And then depending on kind of which level of developer you're hiring, what you need to be measuring is slightly different. Uh, but when it comes to how to do it, is like if you're measuring the core, you almost always want to go automated because
Hmm.
automated tools like Code Signal can very easily do that. When you're going to outer layers, there's still very clear outer layers that can be measured really well. Like the language layer can also be automatically measured really well.
Hmm.
The framework layer is a little bit more complex, and we've been at the cutting edge of enabling automated measurements of the framework layer. But it's like, in some ways, the automation of measurements of those outer layers is like self-driving cars, because in a
Hmm.
self-driving car, you can have a sort of self-driving assistance to you. Like for example, if you're in your car, the self-driving component of the car can like hint you at like, hey, you have a blind spot here, right? Or like you should probably stop because the
There is
person
an
is going to
object.
stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I think when it comes to measuring the outer layers today, the best approach is to do like uh, AI assisted version, not like a full AI version, because there are way too many possibilities there
Yeah,
that
and variables, right? Because it's an
exactly.
application of very much an application of a skill and language and tools.
Right.
Yeah, so it seems like there are too many variables to try to measure a fully automated approach.
Eventually we will, right? Like it's only a
Yeah.
matter of time. Just like self-driving cars, it's only a matter of time until humans never drive cars ever again.
Hmm.
But while we're kind of on the road there, the best thing to do is to do kind of augment some of your interview processes, right? So I can give a very concrete example. If you're trying to interview, for example, we talked about a React developer, right? With a
Uh-huh.
React developer, I mean, you do want to kind of have a human looking at how they did it, how they approached it, how they thought through it. But like first, you need to give them a comfortable environment in which they can do it. Second, you want at least some level of automated testing of the functional components. Like, does the React app work or doesn't work, right? Like when you
Hmm.
click on a button, does
Right.
it ever? But that's not all. There is a lot more to it, such as how do they think about the design? How do they think about the scalability aspect of it? How do they think about the latency aspect of it? So there's so many things that a human still needs to kind of think through and talk through with the candidate, that you still want that human piece. But the AI assistant version of it can really help you be more comfortable in driving that human driven interview for those outer layers.
Right. Yeah, well, thank you so much for your time today and sharing how to think about measuring different layers of knowledge. For more tips and insights on data driven recruiting, please visit ddr.codesignal.com. We'll see you next time.